Hello everyone and welcome to the weekly edition of Daily News Simplified, where we take up important articles from the Hindu newspaper and the week-long of the Indian Express Explains section. Articles taken up for today's discussion are displayed on your screen, and the timestamping along with the notes in PDF and Word format are given in the description box. So let us begin with the first article for that day. But before that, we have some announcements to make. Rouse IAS is going to conduct the mains revision classes for 2023, which will prepare you for the mains 23 examination. As you must be well aware that these classes have boosted the score of many IAS toppers. For example, Anandya Rashri, Pooja Jha, Namrata Chaube, and helped them to score a good rank in the top 100. As far as features of this program is concerned, so all the students and the participants are going to get 150 hours of revision classes that will cover all the important subjects, important themes in the question and answered format. Students will also get one-to-one mentorship in unlimited format. There will be a dedicated mains test series that will help you to simulate exam-like experience and revise your syllabus in the time-bound manner. This test series will also provide you the timely feedback which will help you to score even more. All the teachers taking the classes will be providing you the important and relevant notes which will be handy for you to revise in the last time. There will be 4 hours of classes every day between Monday to Friday. The teachers would include Baswa Upin for economics, Mr. Faizan Khan for ethics, Vaibhav Mishra for polity, Gaurav Tripathi for environment and geography, Ankit Kaul for international relations, Mr. Arun Bharadwaj for science and technology. The second announcement is with respect to the optional test series from political science that is open under the guidance of Rahul Puri sir. This test series would include 16 tests, 8 sectional and 8 full-length tests, along with the evaluation with sample answers and detailed feedback. Over 40 hours of classes comprising detailed test discussion will be conducted for the subscribers. The detailed schedule of the entire test series has been displayed on your screen. In order to know more and subscribe to this test series, there's a link given in the description box that you can follow. Now let us begin the first article for today's DNS. This article of the Indian Express actually talks about the important big plans of the Union government with respect to the education sector. Now, since coming to the power in 2014, this is the second tenure in which the Modi government is right now ruling. And in the last 9 years, they have provided ample evidences that education is important for the government. However, still there are certain sectors which are going through the problems and the hindrances as far as education in the country is concerned. The context of the article says that Modi government's second term has proven to be more eventful in terms of the education compared to the first tenure. This article actually talks about what are the successes and the limitations as far as education policy of the current government is concerned. See, education is extremely important topic as far as UPSC's mains examination is concerned. So one way or the other, every alternate year or maybe every year, they might ask direct or indirect questions from the education sector in your general studies paper 2, where issues relating to the development and the management of the social sector or the social services, especially with education, is directly given. The content for today's discussion would include achievements of the government on the education policy, as well as some of the outstanding issues which government is unable to resolve. As far as the relevance of this topic is concerned, so as you can see on the screen, in 2022, a direct question from right to education was asked. In 2020, a direct question on national education policy which was released the same year was asked. So one way or the other, this topic has remained very relevant for the preparation. In terms of the national education policy, 2020 has already been discussed multiple times in the Daily News Simplified previously. If you want to know more, you can go through the DNS dated 7th of September last year to understand all the important aspects of national education policy. Today we are going to look into the successes and the failures of the current government as far as education is concerned. All these examples are important for your general studies paper 2 as well as your essay paper. So in an essay paper, if a question is asked with respect to the education sector, you can quote these successes and limitations of the government. The first important work which was done is, or the topmost work was the rolling out of new education policy 2020, on which the discussion has already been conducted and the link for this video is being provided in the description box. So NEP 2020 has shifted the focus of the government And here, pedagogy must evolve to make education more experimental rather than the ratification, inquiry driven, and flexible. That is the reason why government is trying to create a fine balance between the humanities subject as well as non-humanities subjects or the science subject. The current scenario in India says that the science subjects are preferred over and above the arts subject or the humanities subject. The reason being simple, because of the job opportunities and the population is running after the job creation, which is an obvious sign for the survival of a human being. But what if humanities subject can create same level of jobs and can provide the same level of livelihood to the people in various sectors? In that manner, both the subjects or the streams would fetch equal results. The second important factor that brought cheers to the education sector was the introduction of common entrance test for central universities that has reduced down the burden on the state boards. Now, previously there was a case when the students from the state boards, especially the boards of the poorer states such as Bihar, Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh, Rajasthan, UP and others, were lagging behind in their admission to the central universities because the students in CBSE board were getting exorbitant high marks, even higher than the 99%, which makes the state board students uncompetitive as far as admissions to the central universities are concerned. The next one is granting more autonomy to the universities in order to reduce the administrative burden or the red tapeism. In this, they have also invited the foreign universities to set up their campuses in India. One such example is University of Wollongong, which belongs to Australia. Now, this university has already signed Memorandum of Understanding with the Union government to set up their campus in India. Engineering college are now offering BTech programs in the regional languages. Now, this will be very helpful for the local languages as well as for the tribal people because they have very limited access to the English education system. Then another important aspect was the creation of the National Assessment Center to align the curriculum and the assessment and the standards across the school and the boards. This will definitely help in creating a uniformity in the assessment of the student and their performance during their school life. Because what has been observed is that there is a wide discrepancy and the dissimilarities between how people or the student at the central level are being assessed, for example under CBSE and ICSE, in comparison to the state boards. Then comes the launch of the digital storehouse, another good initiative where students' credits are being stored. And they have also created Nipun Bharat. Nipun means qualified, to strengthen the foundational literacy of the students between the age of 3 to 9, because these are the years when foundational literacy of a person can well be enhanced, can well be accumulated. And if a person or a student or a child is being well versed in mathematical or the literacy skills, that child can build a good career in the education field. It is followed by the accommodating more EWS or economically weaker sections, and for this IITs, for example, has led the initiative by providing 5,000 extra seats in their institutions. Another one was the no detention policy, where the failing of the young minds was not adopted. National Testing Agency was created in order to create common entrance test. National Medical Commission was set up in 2020 to replace the existing National Medical Council of India as well as to end the Inspector Raj. Because under the previous setup, doctors and the medical professionals used to had, or even the government had, a wider control where they can enter a private hospital, can create any kind of hindrances in the setup of such kind of institutions. Higher Education Finance Agency or HEFA was set up in 2017 in order to refinance the infrastructural need of the higher education. IIM Act of 2017 was another milestone that guaranteed the higher level of academic and administrative autonomy to the IIMs. Unfortunately, this has not been replicated to the central universities and the IITs. The scheme of Institution of Eminence was rolled out in 2018 in order to provide higher funding, more autonomy, and best of the best performing institutions that can find a place in the top rankings in the world education system. Apart from that, various recommendations were given by the new National Curriculum Framework, under which conducting the board examination twice a year, good sign, it will reduce down the pressure, mental pressure among the students. Creating a semester system for the 12th class student, because now as there will be a common entrance test to the central universities, more burden should not be there. Plus, this semester system will reduce down the burden on the student to go for the coaching system for the IITs and other examination. It also provides students with the freedom to pursue the combination of both science and humanities. It means a person or a student who has taken economics history can combine it with maths as an option. And the last one, this curriculum framework has recommended that it will try to reduce down the rigid boundaries between arts, commerce and science in 11th and 12th across all the boards, including the state board. Now, based on the best things that has happened in the last 9 years, outcome proves that yes, it was done on the ground as well. So in 2014, the overall gross enrollment ratio in the primary, upper primary and secondary was around 107, 86 and 73%. See, 107 does not mean that there are over 100 students. It means that some of the students are not belonging to a particular age sector but are still in a particular class. Let's say we assume that in a first standard or in a first class, a student of 5 or 6 years will be studying. But what if there's a student of 8 years who is still there in this class because of the poor learning capabilities or whatever may be the reason? Because of this reason, it is over 100. Fortunately, it has reduced down to 103, which is a good sign, and other things, or the upper primary and the secondary has shown a good increase in their overall enrollment ratio. If we look into the overall enrollment ratio or the gross enrollment ratio in the higher education, it is found that it has increased for 24 to 27%, which is a good sign. And here it means anyone who is studying in the higher education lying between the age group of 18 to 23. As far as gender parity is concerned, so yes, women education is extremely important for the government of India as well as for the state government. Here, the gender parity index in the higher education also proves that it has increased from 0.92% to 1.05. It means for every 100 male student, there are 105 female students. So this is how things have improved now. And the last one is expenditure on the education as percentage of the GDP. Unfortunately, here the government has been moving in the downward trend. So here we have reduced the expenditure from as high as 3.1% to 2.9%. But in the last 4 years, it has increased by 0.1%. It is based on the study conducted by the Economic Survey 2022-23. Now coming to the outstanding issues. What are the issues faced by the overall education sector in India? So all these issues are based on the 9-year performance. The first is the cosmetic change. Government has tried to rename the existing programs without any betterment. For example, midday meal was renamed as Pradhan Mantri Poshan Abhiyan, but overall funding has remained less. Finance Ministry once rejected the proposal made by the Education Ministry to implement the PM Poshan Abhiyan for pre-primary as well as the elementary classes, but this was rejected because of the low funds. The same has happened with respect to the funding of Samagra Shiksha Abhiyan. Here also funding has remained the major concern. Government has now been trying to rewrite the syllabus as well as the curriculum, which is mostly seen to be politically motivated. Central universities and IITs does not have the same level of autonomy as we have talked about, the one which is provided under the IIM Act of 2017. According to the parliamentary records, only 1471 teachers are hired across different higher educations against the total strength of 6,000. In National Research Foundation, intended to incentivize interdisciplinary research has not been materialized. Since 2015, overall allocation towards education has gone down considerably. And digital university, which was announced in the last budget, is still not in place. So these are the important successes as well as various limitations of this existing government in the past 9 years. So if a question based on the performance of the education sector is being asked, you can write both the arguments with the statements or the evidences that we have discussed. With this discussion placed, let us now move to the next article for the day. This article of the Indian Express talks about the pulses and their status in India. So how pulses are being grown, what is the current status of the production, and how and why pulses imports in India are falling, which is a good sign. But why? And on the other hand, vegetable oil or the oil seeds are not showing any promising result. There are two agriculture commodities in which India is significantly import dependent. The first is the edible oil, vegetable oil, and the second one is pulses. Imports of the oil seed has soared, while the imports of the pulses has reduced to a greater extent. Why? And this is what we are going to answer in the upcoming discussion. Apart from that, we are going to look into how the pulses production can be increased further in India. So with respect to your GS paper 3, Indian economy, crop diversification and the crop related question could be asked. So for that, we have framed this mains practice question that despite best of the efforts, domestic pulses production could not meet the domestic demand. So there is demand and supply mismatch. That is one of the reasons imports are more than exports. And India still have to rely on the imports. Why is this trend observed? So this is your first argument and how this can be reversed, which means way forward. So let's understand that why this article is important. So in your general studies paper 3, major crops and cropping pattern in various parts of the country is being asked. The content for this discussion would include past trends of the oil seeds and the pulses production in the country, why pulses imports are falling in India, which is a good sign, what are the concerns still existing in India, and measures to raise pulses production. As far as basic data is concerned, so this was also mentioned in the article. So current status of the oil seeds and the pulses imports are as follows. As far as vegetable oil is concerned, so as you can see, the import has increased consistently. So overall, it was falling in 2018 and 19, but after COVID crisis, we have seen that it has increased. And between 2013 to 22, in the last 10 years, the overall import has increased by 3 times or 300%. On the side of the pulses, we can easily see that there has been the fluctuation. It increased till 2016-17, but has reduced since then. So if you compare the last 10 years trend, you will find that it was 1.8 and it is now 1.9, which are similar to each other as far as valuation is concerned. So from that perspective, we can see that in terms of valuation, so as you can see, the $1 billion valuation of 2013 was higher than what it is right now. So in terms of valuation, yes, it has reduced. But in terms of overall physical import, yes, in that also the imports of pulses has reduced drastically. But in terms of the consumption, the domestic demand has been increasing. So from where are we meeting the domestic demand if the import of pulses are falling? So why this trend is there? Number one, higher domestic production. So according to the Agricultural Ministry, India's pulses production has increased from 19 million tons in 14 to 27 million tons in 2023. So there has been almost 40-45% increase in the last 10 years. So this is a good sign. And this has actually met the increasing demand through Atmanirbharta. So Atmanirbharta or self-sufficiency is the one where India's pulse import has reached 90%, while on the oil seeds, it has remained 40%. Now please understand this through an example. As far as pulses is concerned, so if 100 kg was the imported pulses, now we are able to produce 90 kg domestically. As far as oil seeds are concerned, so this ratio has remained to be around 40 kg only. So the cover up of the pulses import has been more, while on the oil seeds we have not even reached the half of the target. Then comes the dramatic drop. So there has been a dramatic drop in the imports of yellow or white peas, matar, as well as chickpea or chana dal. Now both these have reached their negligible levels. These were the two which were highly imported and now they are on the lower side. And why this is the reason? Because of the war in Ukraine and Russia, and there has been a reduction in the imports from Canada. So as far as composition is concerned, yes, some of the components of pulses has reduced because of the international events. And on the other hand, when it was reduced, self-sufficiency was increased. So there was a boost to the chana production. And this was seen because of the two measures that was taken up by the government. First, 60% of the import duty was imposed in 2018 in order to restrict or discourage the imports, while the second intervention was higher procurement at the MSP. Because of the higher procurement, farmers were encouraged to grow pulses. For example, there is a program PM Asha. Now, under this program, government encourages the procurement and the production of oilseeds and the pulses. As far as answering the question that what concerns lies ahead, number one, erratic production, especially in non-chana pulses, where the highest comes from arhar or tur dal. Now, arhar and tur dal are not very much being promoted. That is one of the reasons why imports from Mozambique, Myanmar, Tanzania, Malawi and Sudan hits a record high. So one is import of the non-chana pulses still remains to be high. The second is equally interesting is masoor dal or the red lentils. Here also the imports from Canada and Australia are high. And third, subnormal monsoon this year can potentially hit the high inflation of the pulses. So low production, higher import from other non-chana components as well as subnormal monsoon can be a concern ahead. So what government should do? Now these are the important way forwards. You can use these important way forwards in order to write a good answer. The first one is timely plant protection measures. Pulses are mostly grown by farmers without any plant protection or any measures. Therefore, the yield is very low. Crops like horse gram or the cowpea suffers from yellow mosaic, which is a virus disease and is also attacked by leaf-eating caterpillar. All the pest disease greatly reduces the pulses yield. Therefore, it is very essential for us to provide need-based plant protection measures in order to obtain the higher yield. The second measure is the increasing area under pulses. The total area under pulses in India is extremely low and almost grown as a secondary crop. In recent year, number of minor and medium irrigation projects are coming up in the regions and irrigation facilities are becoming increasingly available. Here, pulses should be taken up as a primary crop. Then comes the measure of financial help. The per hectare grain yield of pulses being low. Their cultivation was not very remunerative and therefore it was not given a serious thought so far. Thus, in the past, cultivation of pulses suffered to a considerable extent. The supply of good and quality seed is the next one. Supply of pure and good quality seed of different varieties is another constraint that is observed in pulses cultivation. Therefore, arrangements need to be made for production of quality seeds in sufficient quantities by agriculture universities, research institutions and other seed producing agencies. And not only that, these seeds should be provided at a reasonable price. Then comes the point of mixed cropping or the promotion of mixed cropping with other crops. Intercropping of pulses with other crops helps to increase net income per season from same piece of land by increasing the total production and also provide insurance to the farmer against any crop failure. Besides that, pulses crop fixes the atmospheric nitrogen in the soil. So, build up nitrogen status of the soil at no extra cost. And this nitrogen will help in the growing of non-leguminous crop in the future or simultaneously. Then comes the educating farmer in modern technologies of pulse production. In order to boost up the production of pulses in India, extensive participation of farmers in cultivation of different pulses by adopting improved technology is essential. For that matter, different technologies being adopted across the globe can be brought up together. Indian farmers can be clubbed together with the research institutes where young minds can sit up at the panchayat level, can discuss important technologies through audiovisuals, and that's how they can help in adoption. Farmers sometimes remain reluctant in adopting a new technology. For that, government can take initiative by providing them the assistance with respect to the money. Then comes the use of specific rhizobium culture. Pulses in general have an ability to fix atmospheric nitrogen in the soil with the help of a nodule forming rhizobium bacteria in these roots. The lateritic soils are more or less of acidic in nature. So through the use of specific rhizobium culture, we can help in the nitrogen fixation as well. Then comes the developing of the high yield varieties. Because of peculiar agroclimatic condition in the country, most of the region remain dry. Cultivation of the pulses is done on a limited scale using traditional pulse varieties. The production of pulses could be increased. If higher yield, superior varieties are made available to the farmer at a cheaper rate, the moisture retention capability or the capacity of the soil in general is very low. And since rainy days are limited, the variety of maturing is less than 120 days would be essential. So we need seeds that require less amount of water and can sustain in harsher climate. Then comes the grazing management. During the Rabi hot weather season, the farmer face the problem of stray cattle in their cultivating pulses crop. To overcome this problem, it is suggested to encourage the farmer in taking up collective growing of pulses in bigger blocks. This enables the farmer to reduce the cost in providing protection to the crop from stray animals either by watching or by just fencing the block area. Then comes the last one, which is the balanced fertilization. The slopy undulating land or heavy precipitation receiving area in India during the Kharif season, the clay particles of the soil have been washed out and the soil have rendered poor in fertility. Therefore, in order to retain the quality of this soil, we need good level of manures and fertilizers in adequate quantity, not the overutilization of any particular crop, because see, pulses are known to provide nitrogen to the soil. So urea application is not required, or if required, in a very small amount. So right amount of fertilizer and the utilization of the homegrown manures can provide a good and timely growing of the crops in the least amount of water. With all these important initiatives, Government of India and the farmers will be in a position to grow the overall pulses production in India and will help in attaining that high level where imports will not be required. With this entire discussion, you will be able to solve this important practice MCQ. Let us now move to the next article for the day. This article of the Indian Express tells us about the rising level of ground level ozone in Delhi, especially South Delhi. So as per the Center for Science and Environment, there is a rising amount of ground level ozone in South Delhi or Delhi NCR region, which has increased the number of respiratory diseases as well as the skin diseases. Now let us understand what ground level ozone is and how it is very dangerous for the human being. Ozone is a gas. It has 3 atoms of oxygen or O3. It can be good as well as bad. So if it is in the troposphere or in the lower level of the atmosphere, it is known as ground level ozone or tropospheric ozone. It is a colorless and highly irritating gas that forms just above the Earth's surface up to 2 miles. On the other hand, there is good ozone, which is the stratospheric ozone. It occurs naturally. See, the first one is not naturally, it is human made. The second one is naturally, and it is found in the upper atmosphere where it forms a protective layer that shield the Earth's atmosphere from the harmful ultraviolet rays. So the second one is the one that the global community is protecting since the Montreal Protocol. So this is not going to be the discussion. The discussion is based on the tropospheric ozone. Now tropospheric ozone is created by a chemical reaction. So that is the reason why it is anthropogenic or human made. So this chemical reaction is between the oxides of nitrogen and the VOC or volatile organic compound. When both these are present, these two are the pollutants emitted by car, power plants, industrial boilers, refineries, chemical plants, and even they chemically react in the presence of sunlight. So it is NOx plus VOC in the presence of sunlight, and that's how it is created. So as you can see on this image, the NOx plus VOC's heat and sunlight creates O3 or ozone at the ground level. It is a bad ozone. It is not emitted directly into the air but created by the chemical reaction. And as you all know that Delhi is known for the vehicular pollution, and this vehicular pollution is the one that has created the excessive amount of ozone at the ground level. Normally this happens in the high humidity and the high temperature, which is one of the reasons why it is being in the month of June. But surprisingly, ozone creation has already been seen in the months of winters in Delhi, which is a matter of concern. As it absorbs the UV spectrum, the most common way to measure the ozone is to measure how much of this light spectrum is being observed. So more absorption of UV is there, means more ozone is presence. So please understand this. This could be asked in the prelim examination. Higher level of O3 at ground level is visible or is measurable with a higher level of UV absorption. With this discussion, please let us now move to the Hindu articles published today. This article of the Hindu newspaper was published on the science page. Recently, the researchers from IIT Madras have developed a critical component of highly efficient, cost-effective way to electrolyze, separate seawater to generate hydrogen. Now, please understand this. Hydrogen and oxygens are component of water, H2O. When electrolysis happens, these two separates into two different entities, hydrogen and oxygen. And this hydrogen can well be used as a fuel because of its high calorific value. Now, what they have done is that they have used alkaline seawater. As of now, what happens is that clean water, or you can say non-marine water, is used. Specifically, the river waters or the rainwater is used for the electrolysis or for the separation of water. But this time they have used seawater. Now, the biggest hurdle in using seawater is the presence of salt. So high presence of salt actually accumulates on the electrodes. Electrodes are the one that is cathode and anode. So high level of salt actually accumulate on these electrodes. So the best way is to provide that electrodes on which salt cannot be accumulated. So for this, what they have done, they have used the carbon-based support material for the creation of electrodes. And that is the reason why it will eliminate any sort of salt corrosion. No salt corrosion means it can be used for longer period of time without any salt deposition. The third thing that they have used is that they have used a metal-based catalyst that can catalyze both oxygens as well as hydrogen very easily. Now, catalyst is the one that helps in the speeding up the process. So it will help in the quicker formation of oxygen and hydrogen. The fourth thing that they have done is that they have provided a separator which is cellulose based. Why? First, it is economically very beneficial. So this separator which is going to be there in the apparatus between cathode and the anode will be very economical. Second, it will allow the hydroxide ions to pass from one way to the other between cathode and anode, but it will restrict the passing of oxygen and hydrogen. Now see, let's say this is one compartment, this is the another compartment. So we have cathode and anode. Here we will have hydrogen, here we will have oxygen. Now, hydrogen will not be able to travel to this area, while oxygen will not be able to travel to the cathode area. But the hydroxide ions can easily pass through. That is one of the reasons why we will be able to get hydrogen separately and oxygen separately. Seawater is going to be split, and because of all these four reasons, seawater can easily split into hydrogen and oxygen. And as we all know, we have plenty of seawater. Why not use this to create green hydrogen? Now the point is why we are saying it to be green hydrogen, because we require electricity. So these electrodes will be using electricity. Now if this electricity is coming from coal power plant, it is not green hydrogen, but here they are using solar energy. So this solar energy is the one that is going to give a renewable push, and the hydrogen that is being created with this energy is going to be the green hydrogen. So the process says that at cathode, water dissociates into hydrogen and hydroxide ions, while hydrogen ions get converted into the hydrogen. On the other hand, hydroxide ions produced at the cathode permeates through the separator and oxygen is generated at the anode. So hydroxide will move from one way to the other, while hydrogen and oxygen will not. The energy requirement here is met by the solar energy, and that is the reason why we are saying that we have produced green hydrogen. Now this entire process is being observed here. We are going to take renewable energy, let's say wind energy, hydropower, or maybe the solar energy. In that we are going to add water. Water will go through the electrolyzer. Then electrolyzer with oxygen and hydrogen will be separated. Hydrogen will be stored in a particular compartment. This will be then used or will be transported for their respective uses. It can be used for the fuel, it can be used for powering power plants, or for the hydrogen as a fuel at the household level also. This can even be used for the rockets and the air flights. So what is green hydrogen? Green hydrogen is one which is generated using the renewable energy resources, solar, hydro or wind power plant. So they generate the electricity for electrolyzer. Electrolyzer separates water into hydrogen and oxygen. Hydrogen is being stored and then there is net zero emission. That is the reason it is known as green hydrogen, environmentally neutral. After this, the application of the hydrogen will go to the transportation sector, power generation, industrial units such as steel, cement, paper, food, aluminium. We need requirement of the electricity. We need energy for that, and hydrogen can meet the demand. For building and their power consumption, for chemicals such as hydrogen is used for fertilizers, fuel refining, plastic making. We also need hydrogen for metallurgy, food, steel, glass and many other applications. Now, the question arises that what India has done in this regard. So in 2021, Government of India on 15th August, Prime Minister himself announced the National Hydrogen Mission, in which they have intended to produce 3/4 of the hydrogen from the renewable resources. That is 3/4 of the total hydrogen will be the green hydrogen by the year 2050. Objective was to cut down the carbon emission and increase the use of renewable sources of energy while aligning India's effort at the global best practices, technology, policy, regulation. Because India has already committed at the Paris climate deal that it is going to be carbon neutral. The incentives that are provided to the one which is going to set up a green hydrogen power plant include single window clearances for faster project approvals, allotment of land in renewable energy parks, priority access to interstate transmission network, open access procurement within 15 days, waiver of interstate transmission charges and 30 days energy banking policy. So all these incentives will be provided to a person who is going to produce green hydrogen in India. As far as current status of hydrogen production in India is concerned, so in 2003 we started with the National Hydrogen Energy Board, DIAS functional right now. Then in 2006 we came up with National Hydrogen Energy Roadmap, still not functional. But now comes the real effort. Over 100 research groups are now focusing on the hydrogen fuel cell technology that has already been covered in the DNS previously, where IITs are also involved. Reliance Industry is also likely to invest 75,000 crore rupees in the 3 years to produce green hydrogen in India. NTPC, National Thermal Power Corporation, as of now is utilizing the green hydrogen for their own electricity uses. Good initiative. Then Acme Solar has commissioned world's first commercial pilot of an integrated green hydrogen and green ammonia plant in Bikaner, Rajasthan. Another great initiative. And the last one is India at the international effort has also signed along with the Egypt a memorandum of understanding to produce a green hydrogen power plant in Suez Canal. Now after entire discussion we come to a question. Why do we need green hydrogen? The reason is that the demand of energy consumption is likely to increase, and green demand at the global level is going to be at 500 to 600 million tons by 2050. And here India can be a game changer. There is an ever rising demand of faster and fuel efficient mobility. So apart from the electric vehicles, hydrogen vehicles can be a game changer. CO2 emission is already high, and we can reduce that emission in order to meet our commitment to the Paris climate deals. As per the Bloomberg research, green hydrogen can produce at $0.7 per kg. Now please imagine that. $0.7 per kg means around 50 rupees per kg of hydrogen. And hydrogen has a high calorific value. Imagine the kind of mileage your bike or your car is going to give at such a small price. Then availability of seawater, as we all know, is infinite to produce millions of tons of hydrogen across the world. International example, if we take, Spain has set up a separate 100 megawatt of solar power plant to produce green energy or green hydrogen for the industry. But the point is they are using clean water, and India can use salt water. Now the issue that comes in the hindrance is, as of now 95% of the total hydrogen production in the world is fossil fuel based. So the need of the hour is to invest more on the green hydrogen, or the renewable resources can be utilized for the promotion of hydrogen development. With this discussion, please let us now move to the last article for the day. This article of the Hindu newspaper has clearly talked about the question and answer of frequently asked question, where they have answered some of the questions with respect to the Arctic sea ice. Now the context says, if drastic reduction in the emission aren't undertaken, scientist has stated that there will be a ice-free Arctic summer in 2030, just in next 7 years, which was predicted to be in 2050 or later on previously. So this is a matter of concern. Now the question arises that why Arctic sea ice is important. Why can't we just have Arctic Ocean? Why do we need ice? First, rise and fall in the Arctic sea temperature influence the ocean currents because of the cold currents which move from Arctic to the southern direction. Then the presence of ice at the northern pole helps in the generation of albedo, reflection of the solar radiation. Higher albedo means Earth is going to be remain cool. But if there is no ice, there will be more absorption of solar radiation. Then comes that absence of ice would induce the Arctic temperature and cause for further reduction of the ice deposition. So once the temperature increases, it will further discourage the development or the freezing of ice. Then comes the issue of air masses would be impacted. So over polar area we have cold air mass. Generation of high temperature will discourage the development of cold air mass, ultimately impacting the planetary winds. So we have polar high pressure, which is created because of the low temperature. Now if there is no low temperature, there will be no high pressure. Once high pressure is not there, there will be the skewed movement of the planetary winds, especially the polar winds. There will be the impact on the biodiversity. Polar bears, walruses are known for hunting, breeding and migrating in the cold temperature. Where will they go? Where will they survive? Polar bears survive on the ice caps. No ice caps, where will the polar bear go? And the last one is actually the benefit. If there is no ice in the Arctic Ocean, exploration of the natural resources such as oil and gas will become more beneficial. So for human terms, for economic terms, this is good. But as far as global geographical environmental terms are concerned, melting of Arctic Ocean is not at all a good sign. With this discussion please, now we come to the end of today's Daily News Simplified. Thank you very much for watching. Stay tuned for more such updates.